My name, of course, is John Ley. I was born in Joliet, 1925, March 22nd. uh, I was born at home. My father was a railroad man and a union man. Oh, the unions are what makes the world go round. My father was, as a child, I was running around collecting union dues. I remember I'd go up, knock on the door. Hi, I'm John Ley. Your union dues is due. Okay, I got the envelope right here. Here, kid, take it. So I was collecting union. I was a runner, I guess you'd say, for the the American Federation of Labor. I lost interest in my second year of high school at Joliet Township High School. I lost interest and I dropped out, which of course we know was a mistake. When I got out of the military, I had to go back and pick up some high school subjects to get into college. I had to pick up mathematics and so forth to get into college. And then I went to uh, as I say, at 16, I was in the labor force unloading lumber. At 17, I was in the office collecting money and doing administrative things in the office. Along came the selective service, and I was selectable. So at the age of 18 plus 2 months, I was sent to Chicago. And when I got to the the guy that was assigning them to the various, whether you're going Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Navy, or Army, you had four choices. Which do you want? And I said, well, what's open? The guy says, anything you want. Where do you want to go? So Great Lakes was just 60, 80 miles from home. I'll go to Great Lakes. Send me to Great Lakes. It was wonderful. Uh, we got every other weekend off. I would jump on the train, ride to Chicago, get off at the station, jump on another train, and be home in about 2 hours, 3 hours. So I was home every other weekend. And people were saying, my son has been sent overseas and I've never seen him since. And I see you every other weekend. How do you do that? I said, luck of the draw. But I finished the radio school at Great Lakes, Illinois. And then I had an interesting adventure. My first military adventure. We're going to go to Virginia. Okay. The dining car was not a dining car. It was a baggage car, as they had with the old steam engines, a baggage car with an Army field kitchen in it. So that was the transportation. It took, I believe, 3 days to get from literally Chicago to Virginia. So we'd be on the siding and everybody would be complaining until the ambulance of trains would go by with the wounded. And I get emotional sometimes about this, but the Red Cross on the side of the cars coming back from combat, and then of course that silenced everything. Finally, they call the names. Ley, here, sir. Here you are. Here's your orders. Murphy, USS Murphy, destroyer, tin can, DD 603. As we were assigned the destroyer people, a guy that I had been with in radio school come over. He was very despondent, very dejected looking. He said, what'd you get? What'd you get? I said, I got the USS Murphy, DD 603, currently in New York, being rebuilt after being cut in half. I feel as though I was very fortunate because this guy, Kitty, come over. When I told him what ship I got, he said, I got the Meredith. And he held the orders up in front of me just like that and said, I got the Meredith. He said, I will be dead in 90 days. He was dead in 90 days, almost to the day, June 5th. So we were sent over again. Aircraft, bombers, going over one altitude, coming back at another. Fighter aircraft, P-51, Spitfires everywhere, Spitfires. I realized that we were going into something big. And how big, the only thing I could think of when I saw the fleet and saw the ship, they were beyond the horizon. When I saw the number of vessels and I saw the supplies that were being sent over, I thought, I may be wrong, but I think this is the biggest battle in history. Napoleon was peanuts compared to D-Day. Our assignment was take the smoke generators, open the smoke generators, and as the smoke goes in to shore, the landing craft are going to be here and they're going to disgorge the troops, and then the Army troops will come out of the landing craft and go in to our assignment at Omaha Beach. We had a green crew, of course, and we about half our crew was combat from Sicily, and the other half crew, new guys like me. The ship's doctor, he's responsible now for the crew's health, so he put out an order: all hands report to the dispensary for a shot of whiskey. Well, we didn't have any shot glasses on board, but we had cups like that. So everybody got, it was diluted with alcohol, medical alcohol, and everybody got a shot of whiskey at around going in on D-Day, around probably 11 o'clock at night when we're going in. So everybody went down and got a shot of whiskey, except me. I'm a non-drinker. So what happens to non-drink? I don't want it. So give me your whiskey. Sure. They get their cups that high, that big around for coffee, and they got half of that filled with whiskey. So it's probably 4 ounces of whiskey, which on some of the crew members affected their reality. And as a result of these guys, there were people on the deck manning guns that were not so conversant. The wind was blowing, the weather was so inclement. It was cold. The people at general quarters on deck were freezing out there because the wind, the water, and the temperature was penetrating their light, I should say light, foul weather jackets. We went back to stand out and stay out if they needed fire support for landing. I was assigned to the CIC, Combat Information Center. At Combat Information Center, my job was to monitor voicemail. I no longer had the earphones. I had a speaker in front of me now, and I had a desk about 2 square feet maybe, with a log, and I had to copy all messages that were coming over on voice and write them down, put down the time, and so you write down what happened. And the theory was that if they needed fire support, I would write down what the fire control people were ordered. So then when they could later check the findings. I was on the radio. No, nobody ashore yet. This is maybe 3 in the morning. General quarters. And then later I got it. The radio squawked. First paratroopers are out of the aircraft. Paratroopers now descending. Aircraft carrying them going back empty. A little while later. Gliders being towed. Gliders released. They're free of the carrier aircraft. They're gliding down to Earth. They came around with sandwiches and coffee. A quarter of an inch on roast beef on 2 pieces of bread and coffee. And that was in the CIC room. It's interesting. Later, I wrote, Don Cobb wrote a book, another radioman who from Evans, and he's still alive. He asked me for comments on it, and I said, yeah. I mentioned it was delicious. Those roast beef sandwiches were great. And he came back from Evansville and he says, what roast beef sandwiches? I never got any. He was on a gun crew. I was in an officer area, and he was on hand of the bullet type deal. As we're going in, my mental thoughts. July 3rd, 1862. Pickett's charge, and that was in my mind. We're sending those people off that landing craft into Pickett's charge. Now we know, sort of, 9,000 died that day. 9,000. We were under such intense fire at Omaha that I just couldn't visualize, what was, because I'm getting all kinds of transmissions on the radio, none of which were good for me, I'll tell you. It was no encouragement, I'll tell you. Omaha was catching it. I heard there's a glide bomb coming down, get ready to jam. And during Normandy, the glide bombs would come down. They would beep, 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 beep. And when you heard that, somebody was going to get hurt. Or if they jam it in time, then it'll go into the ocean. A few years ago, I was reading a big expose. They're going to go down and dive and find out what sank the Meredith. And I could have told them. I was listening. I heard the very bomb that got him, because it was coming out beep, 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 beep. Silence. And then the next thing on the radio was, the Meredith's been hit. And then following that is, see if we can't save the people on the Meredith, over the radio. It was a very heartbreaking night to lose people that you knew like that in combat. Maybe 9 o'clock, with the way the battle was going, I prayed. I couldn't take it anymore. The dead were on the beach. The corpsmen were putting them, there were no provision made. There were provision made, but there wasn't set up. No tent set up for combat during the initial assault on the beach. So what do you do with the wounded that were the first guys to hit the beach? Put them on a stretcher, put them back on the landing craft, and send them back to the hospital ship. Well, they had sand on their boots, and the landing craft would come by the destroyer, the Murphy, and the guys were crying for water. I'll tell you, it takes it out of you. There aren't many of us that strong to see dead and dying in the hull of a landing craft, going back to the ship and no water. We gave them water. We sent water over in pots to feed the wounded or give them water, and then take them back to the hospital ship. And the prayer was, please, God, don't let this be another default where we have to pull our troops out. I don't want to leave. So, and of course, the more people coming in, the landing craft kept coming aboard, coming ashore. And by 9 o'clock, I was very much concerned because that's when the tanks were getting hung up and it goes on. People were dying, and I was getting the reports on people dying on the beach. But the corpsmen were doing a magnificent job. Stop the bleeding, stop the pain, put them on land anchor, get them out of here. That was the deal up to about 0900 during the early morning hours. Get them out of here. They'd come out with sand on their boots yet, wet sand, as you look down on them. They were hit within the first 5 minutes that they're on the beach. By 9:30, we got an urgent message. Leave your position, go to Point du Hoc. Point du Hoc, what is Point du Hoc? It was the cliffs, 60 feet high, straight up, perpendicular cliffs. The Rangers were set there. We pull up to our position 100 yards offshore. The Rangers are in bad way. They were given grappling hooks. And today I was at a museum recently. They had pictures of the grappling hooks. You throw the grappling hooks up and the Rangers would climb up. But at the top were the Germans dropping hand grenades. They were piling up at the bottom of the cliff. I went on the deck. I actually went on the deck and yelled, for God's sakes, guys, they got you by the tail. Hold up. Get some reinforcements. They didn't hear. 100 yards away. The gunfire. Both enemy, foe, and friend. We could not use our turrets for support. Why? Because they're only 60 feet apart, 80 feet apart. Friend and foe. Which is which? I know which is which because I know the guys climbing the cliff. Guys, you're being killed. I was yelling from the deck of the ship. And they kept going. They took the cliff. But I can never talk about Point du Hoc, the Rangers, without getting emotional. I saw them die. I couldn't do anything to help them. I'm 100 yards away. And I see them. I can't help them. What we really needed was Marine snipers. If we had had 6 Marine snipers, we could have done good work for the Rangers, but we didn't have any snipers. So with our 5-inch guns, our 40 millimeter Bofors, our 30 caliber machine guns, we couldn't help the Rangers. So I get emotional when I talk about it because I have to relive those hours that we were on there. It's interesting. A number of years ago, 5 years ago maybe, my caregiver, Jenny, took me back to Normandy. It was a very touching period because I had to relive the experience all over again. She took me to Point du Hoc. Uh, every time I think of those Rangers, I never see a Ranger, but then I don't salute them. I salute Rangers because they're heroic, is the only word I can give. Heroic people. So I have the greatest respect for the Army Rangers after the experience I had. As the Allies hit the beach and started moving inland, the people, the occupation troops, the German troops occupying the villages, they were terrorized because they didn't have any offensive condition. I believe that in war and in football games, a good defense never won a war nor a football game. Both are won by offense. People like Eisenhower and Patton. That's who wins wars. On the 26th of June, we had to go down to Cherbourg. Eisenhower needed the dock facilities there to get supplies in for the army. So we had to take Cherbourg, and it was heavily defended. And the army couldn't get them. The army couldn't take it. So Eisenhower said, the USS Texas down there, and the USS Texas was down, and they neutralized them. I was on the radio hearing the various reports, and they would report this gun emplacement, the Texas knocked it out. Good, good. Our infantry could come up then. But wait a minute, 15 minutes later, the gun is back back in position and firing. What in the world is this all about? The Texans would eliminate the crews, and then they would go in and have a new crew on the gun and be back in operation. It was an amazing, amazing fortification system, defense. By the time the Texans finished with them, though, I can assure you there was no activity and no festivities in those bunkers. They did a job on them, and the Texans went out and fired all afternoon, I swear. They illuminate the world when they fired their large guns. Now we've got the troops going in. They're moving inland. Armor, Patton's people are moving in. Good. We pretty well have got the beaches cleaned. Now we got in behind there, behind the beach, we had trouble. Back at Normandy, we're waiting for possibly first if any aircraft come over. We have the aircraft, the Bofors that will eliminate them. This Heichel was hit probably by a Spit or a Mustang, and because he was wounded, he was going down, but still had control of the aircraft. And he picked us out to see if he couldn't get to us and kamikaze us in the port. And so I wasn't on deck. I was inside now, and there was no sign of it, nothing on the radio that said he's coming in. But he was hit, coming down, apparently wounded, and he tried to come down to hit the ship, but his vision or reflexes or muscles were off, and he missed us. The crew on the deck said he missed us by 10 feet, 12 feet. At night, the Germans had a bomb. It was a glide bomb. It comes down by radio, and they're 50, 55 megahertz. Find it, then they come in, beep, 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 and they get louder and louder. And when they're coming down, everybody in the information center froze. You don't move. It may be for you. And it may be jammed. Now, if they jam it, then it falls, the beeping stops and it falls into the ocean. But it's a terrorizing thing. I'm fearless. No, you're not. No, when there's a bomb coming down, you're going to be tense. You're going to be tense. It's beyond human comprehension. And that's as I see Normandy. From the participant view, it was beyond comprehension. The death toll of that day, I knew it was going to be bad. Oh, I knew Normandy. I knew Omaha was going to be bad. But 9,000? Row on row. In Normandy fields, the flowers grow between the crosses, row on row. It's difficult to convey to the uninitiated something that I can't imagine, but I'm trying to convey to you the unimaginable. The number of people, the blood that flowed on both sides. The German defenses were splendid, splendid. And they had a slob like Hitler leading them. These magnificent officers who could put up all this battle and do so much harm to us. How do you convey an admiration enveloped in hate? Or is that a hate enveloped in admiration? Now we're down into, let's see, late June. And we fought also North Atlantic submarines, and that's terrible duty. Oh my gosh, you're copying the message, and boom, and you think the ship rises out of the water. There's that much effect from the depth charges going off. It was cold and miserable and rough. You're always, if you can visualize the ship lurching, manual typewriter, the ship is going to starboard, and you're at starboard typing, and the carriage slides down to the end. And now you're copying. You got to get that back up there during these periods where you're in a thing and continue copying. Don't miss the first two groups, or you're mud in the radio room. We captured 3 Luftwaffe officers, 1 officer and 2 sergeants. Wait a minute. We don't have room for officers enlisted on this thing. This is a tin can. The prisoner of war compound was, I think, about 6 by 10 feet. The 2 sergeants that we captured went into the brig. Meals brought to them every day, the same as we had, 3 times a day. They had their meals served on metal trays like we did. Every day, the prisoners were brought topside, and there they were put through exercise, jumping jacks. They had to do exercise. Doctor's orders. Give those men exercise. Don't let them sit down there in the hall. But wait a minute, we had 3 guys, we had an officer. What do we do with the officer? We can't put him in with the enlisted. Rule of war. We can't put him on the deck. Rule of war. I know. We'll put him with our officers. So what do? they have his uniform cleaned and pressed and put him in our wardroom for dinner. And there I would go down with the message, the clipboard with the message. The captain would be here, take it over there. And meanwhile, here's an RAF officer, and next to him is a German officer, and the rest are US Navy officers, all in the wardroom, all eating the same food. So when they bring the German over, yeah, I'll have a piece of that chicken, or I'll have some of that steak. And he was on his honor not to try anything or he'd be shot. There was a German officer that was given the full benefit of the rules of war. When we're on Mediterranean duty, we got a message that our message was to go down and pick up the King of Saudi Arabia. What is this? We have no facilities for handling royalty on a tin can. So we went through the Great Lakes and through the Suez Canal and went down to Jeddah. And there we there was no pilots to come up ashore, nobody to guide us through the shallows or the coral. A fisherman, we had, come on aboard, get up on board, take us in there. And this guy points out there, doesn't speak English, there. And he took us in right close to the shore. And I thought that was remarkable. We got, then the king's entourage came aboard. And now the king was in a chair being carried. Later on, FDR gave him a wheelchair. So, but when he came aboard, his crew was carrying. Now, the Arabians were very gracious. They had enough food for everybody. All pork was forbidden on the ship. No cooking utensil that had pork in could be used. What do you do now? The king is handicapped. They brought the king in, carried him in a chair, and brought him in. He got the captain's cabin. Now, for us to go to the radio room, we had to step over an armed guard, an Arabian armed guard. And finally, they moved him, and now he's on the metal deck. There's no pillow and a mattress for him. No, he's sleeping on the metal deck, and he's curled up with his Luger. And if anybody wanted to get to him, they'd have to step over him and get shot. During the day, the king wanted to be on deck. He didn't want to be in that little cabin, which is probably 150 square feet. So they'd carry him out, and the bosun mate had to make a tent affair on the forecastle. So they had canvas stretching from the guns, and they had the guns pointed out, and then they put a canvas over the gun and down to tied it on to the port and the starboard side. When we're coming in to meet the cruiser, USS Quincy, when we came in to meet that, we went through the Suez Canal, and we met the king we met Roosevelt in the Great Bitter Lake. And he was on the cruiser Quincy. So Roosevelt with his entourage. That meant that president, we all had to be in whites, dressed in whites, and they call it manning the rail. You man the rail. You stand at attention along the rail as you come aboard the Quincy with the president on board. So you come aboard now. Now the king is out. He's up on the forecastle area, and so We pull it beside the Quincy, and then, of course, we tie to the Quincy. The King's handlers take him over from the Murphy, the USS Murphy, onto the Quincy. As a gratitude, every member of the crew got 42 silver dollars, silver Saudi Arabian dollars. Apparently, they were minted in the U.S., all new, minted, just freshly minted silver coins, silver dollars. The officers got things like Swiss watches, very nice Swiss watches, and the officer, the commanding officer, got a dagger, a gold dagger with jewelry in. And I feel confident that they weren't glass, with jewelry in this gorgeous gold dagger. And it had the hook on the end of it, like the Arabs use. So I've often thought, what happened to that dagger? Where is that? Because technically it belongs to the U.S. government. I guess technically my $42 belongs to the U.S. government. So I'll probably get a bill as soon as he hears this video. We were then released to go back again through the Suez Canal back into the Mediterranean. So I went down to Springfield, Missouri. I dropped in at a private college, a religious college on the north side of town, and I liked their sales talk. And there I was in the Navy Reserve. I'd go on active duty every summer. While I was in college, I'd go on active duty as a radioman second class. Just before I got my degree, the guy who had the apartment across the hall from me said, "Hey, I've been checking. You're going to Korea." I said, "How do you know?" He said, "I checked." He said, "You're being called up as a second class petty officer." He said, there are no more first class or chiefs left. He said, "They're down to second class now." He said, "So you'll be gone in about a month or two." So he said, "However, if you come enlist in the Air Force, I'll get you second lieutenant. Guaranteed. If you pass the test." Went through OCS. I got my commission, second lieutenant. And then I was sent to radio school. Back in radio, they wanted one volunteer to go down to flight school in Texas on radar interceptor officer. I said, "Heck, I'll go." So I went down. They had B-25s, all modified with radar systems. And you'd sit in the back of the B-25, and with your headset, you pick up the bogey on the screen. Give me 40 degrees starboard. Steady. Hold that heading. Speed. We're falling behind. Give me 10 more knots on the velocity. Okay, then you pick them up, you come in behind them. Every day we would fly at certain hours. We would put aircraft into the air for camp missions, combat air patrol. We're loaded. We're ready to kill. If they're coming over and they can't identify and they don't listen to what we're give our directions, we're killing them. It was that tense during the Cold War. So then I could tell my story of my unidentified flying object. We're on a camp mission, fully armed. Ground control calls us, says, I got a blip over. He said, "I don't know what the heck it is." He said, "Would you fly over and take a look at it?" So we go over there, and the guy is vectoring us, give me 5 more degrees starboard. So I take the heading, 055 or whatever, and we go in. And Hearn is calling me from the front seat, the pilot's seat. The pilot's calling me. He said, What have you got? I said, nothing, nothing yet. Oh, wait a minute. I got a contact. He's 30 starboard. Give me 30 starboard. Uh, he's moving out. He's still at 10 miles. Uh, Give me 20 more knots of speed. Uh, wait a minute. He's still moving out. Give me some more speed. And so I finally said, gate. That means afterburner. Go get it. I said, he's moving away from me. So I said, okay, I got him at 8 miles. What do you see? Anything? No, I don't see anything. No light, no nothing. Okay, 8 miles. We're in weather, maybe. I don't know. But maybe clouds. He said, where are we? I said, 4 miles, dead ahead at gate. And he's still moving away. This is insane. Wait a minute, you're coming in on him. Hold steady. Reduce speed. He's right ahead of us, about 4 miles. He said, I can't see anything. I can't see anything. I said, well, he's out there, whether you can see him. He may be at a different altitude. Look high, look low. He may be at a different altitude. All of a sudden, boom, my scope goes full white. I never saw it before. Full white. Nothing. Completely lost. And there my scope was blocked out with, I think, it was radiation. It had to be electromagnetic force or electroradiation. The radiation was such that it had to be a magnetic force that was far superior to anything that we were using. Far superior. Because that whole screen was white. We came down and landed. We were getting low on fuel. As we're taking our parachutes out of the cockpit, Bob said, what do you think we ought to say? I said, well, look at the other guys that said something. Those guys that previous to us from our squadron, when they'd come down, if they had an unidentified object, when they landed, refuel, refire, refile in the air. You can't even go in the center. You got to refile in the air. They would go down to Washington. They would land, refuel, take off, go to Andrews Air Force Base, and come back. What happened? Nothing. Nothing. Where'd you go? Nothing. Nothing. Don't know anything. What'd you tell them? Nothing. I didn't talk to anybody. Nobody. So everybody would go down. They were there 3 days. They didn't talk to anybody. They didn't know anything. And they wouldn't discuss it. So I said, we're not going down to Washington. I didn't see anything. Did you see anything? No, I didn't see anything. It was a radar malfunction. All history is important because history determines what we're going to do in the future in most cases. The American Revolution must have been every bit as tragic as the Normandy on a smaller scale. The home front was so important. When we would pull into a port, it was a tremendous morale uplifter. And I feel that the home front support was critical to winning the battle. When your defenses turn from defense to hopeless, you're done. The battle is over. In life, always associate with people who are smarter than you, not necessarily richer than you, smarter than you, and more energetic than you. You'll have a better life.